Are we ready for our main topic? Are we ready to
All right,
judge some anime?
let's
Yeah.
do
I
it.
know I am. We don't have a fancy drop for it, but it is the top five slash bottom five of 2024. This was assembled by all of the hosts of this podcast. So if you don't like the results, don't blame us. I mean, partially blame us, but not completely. You know how it is. And where do you guys want to start? At the best shows or the worst shows?
I,
Let's do worst. Then
This is the worst.
we can build ourselves up. Unless
Okay.
Raggedy, you have a
oh
different
no, I
view.
like that. I wanted to start with maybe a few of our personal, like sort of honorable mentions that didn't
Yeah,
make
you
the big
can put
list.
out any honorable
Great.
mentions before we get into it if you want. I will say personally, I very much kind of abstained from the worst shows category only because, yes, a lot of the shows I saw were not my favorite and I rated them low. Like, there's a whole swath of shows that I dropped an episode or two in that were so not engaging that it was even worth my time to determine how bad they were, you know? So, like,
Fair.
understanding, like, these are the worst shows that we either were forced to watch or, like, that we finished. So, are these the
And let's
worst of
also
2024?
remember,
Maybe not, but
now that we've also like diversified the people we have on here, we have also been more selective with the shows that we want to watch. So if somebody has reviewed a show, they are more likely to have actually liked the show.
yeah.
A
Which
little bit more likely, at least.
which is really funny because I think all five shows, except for one show, all of them were ones I sat and watched through of my own volition
Why am I doing this?
for some
See,
reason.
you're a trooper, though. Like, I don't have time to watch Rinkai or, like, High Speed Etoile or, like, that stuff that's just, like, aggressively bad. So I didn't vote for those because I don't watch them. So there's probably worse stuff out here. So if you like any of these shows, that's your excuse that you can use. You're welcome. You can have that one. But starting from the best worst show, so number five, and making our way to worst. What do we have first? Because you guys reviewed this one.
Oh, are we doing our honorable mentions first?
Oh yeah,
The
sorry.
ones that
We
are
can
not
we can
gonna
do
get
the honorable mentions if you
Okay.
want.
But so an honorable mention of one of my best shows that is not appearing on this list overall, and I'm the only one who mentioned it. Oshi no Ko season 2. I thought
Mm,
it was a fantastic season.
Wait, we're starting. Oh, we're starting with any honorable mentions. I thought we were
yeah,
starting with the worst honorable mentions.
Sorry, I thought we would just do all the honorable mentions
Oh,
first.
okay, okay.
uh,
Okay, we did not plan this out right, I
No, we
guess.
didn't.
We did
But
not come to a consensus.
I hope someone else got as much
Sorry.
whiplash.
I'm
No, Don to
sorry.
Don really did.
yeah.
All right, what
Uh,
do you two want to do? I'll just follow your lead.
no,
Let's
I
do
like
the
it.
worst shows, starting with the worst honorable mentions.
All right. Raggedy, do you want to take this one?
Sure. I will take one that I think I'm the only person on planet Earth who watched this show. The Grim Variations. It was a show on Netflix where they took like weird spins on famous fairy tales. The first episode was interesting enough. It was a spin on Cinderella, where Cinderella's the villain basically. Um, but it's just very weird and not in like the good Mason weird. It's like weird and like
Weird, weird, weird. All of it weird.
the like it just I can't even describe like because they tried to make each episode completely different to work this whole variation spin, and they go to just some strange places, and it was not worth the watch. Don't watch it.
Well, not only did I not see the show, I've never heard of it until you just brought it up. So you really, that's impressive. Though, Cammy in the chat says that she watched one episode of it, said it was fine, and didn't want any more. So I think you are
Yeah, the
validated.
first episode is the best episode, and it can fool you.
It's the Uzumaki of good shows.
Sad.
Which,
Uh,
honestly, I think you also no, Otaku had it on his list as one
I
of the
had it.
worst shows.
I had it on my list in the
Yeah,
last slot, but just as like more of a honorable mention of. I feel like it had to be mentioned.
Uzumaki was disappointingly bad, whereas Like, there
Grim
was
Variations
some
was
merit
bad.
in it in a way that like these others didn't have. Obviously, it had hype and acclaim that it drastically failed to meet, but a worthy honorable mention, I guess we can mention.
Hmm.
Caroline, what's one of your honorable
Um,
mentions not on the list?
Towards the end of my list, because I didn't actually fill out all 5 boxes that we had here. I only filled out 4 because there was nothing else that I really felt like I really disliked at any major points that I wanted to talk about. So at the bottom of that list, so not so bad, but also not that great, was Alia sometimes hides her feelings in Russian. I just felt like it started off pretty fun, and then it just got dragged down by silly stuff, and I got really, really bored by the end.
Poor Otaku Cop in shambles.
Listen,
Yeah, at least he didn't
is
put it on
what
his
it
top 5.
No,
I
he
might have
knows.
at one point had shows on my bottom 5 that were on people's top 5, and I felt bad about that, so I deleted them.
Oh, wow. Now I wanna know what it was.
That's classified.
Oh,
That sounds like some after party content right there.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Are we ready to get to the official
The actual
list?
list. Let's do it.
Alright,
Yeah.
let's go.
Starting with number 5. So this is not the worst show, just the worst show. Train to the End of the World. This is from the spring 2024 season. And I did the impressions on this. So I watched the first couple episodes. Didn't hate it. Thought it was fun, but just kind of oddly strange and quirky and dialogue and reference heavy. And it was fine. It just wasn't really pulling me in. But it didn't strike me as aggressively bad. I didn't complete the show. I wasn't there for the reviews. So how did it turn out?
It's been a while since I watched it. I thought generally it was okay. I mean, I did put it on my list. I think I ranked it like 3 or 4. Yeah, 3. Um, it was just okay. Like, it had some promise, and I think that's what kills a lot of shows, that when it has promise and then it doesn't do anything with it.
Yeah, I didn't watch this one. I listened to the review, and I remember Mitsugi really hated it.
Yeah, I will
Well,
say
that was not gonna be a surprise.
the way I aggregated these scores was very artistic of me. It was more reading tea leaves and like objectively applying numbers to everything, but this was heavily carried by this being Mitsugi's least favorite show by a landslide. And we all know Mitsugi, what his preferences are. This is definitely not a Mits show, so I understand that. But that, coupled with Caroline having it at number 3, made
Oh,
it
sorry, guys.
low
I
on the.
I ruined it.
Yeah, exactly. So, not a terrible show.
It really isn't that bad of a show, to be honest. I didn't really see that much garbage last year, I guess.
And
which is a
that's
good
what I'm saying. These shows are the worst shows that we watched, which it's not the end of the world. Who wants to take the next one?
I'll do it.
Yeah,
Okay,
you will.
so
You
the
had,
next one on our
you had
list.
this top of your list.
Number 4 is Windbreaker. This was a dumb show that had very little going for it. It had a nice punch animation going for it,
Mhm.
and that was basically it. Everything else was paint by numbers and silly.
And I loved it.
Oh, you love it. You love to see it.
Not this wasn't on my top list, not even close. I don't think it was nearly bad enough to be on the worst list, considering some of the other stuff that we had to.
And I will say, everything else above this, I have not seen. So you are probably correct.
Yeah, it's Windbreaker. The biggest problem with Windbreakers is, like you said, it is very paint by numbers. A lot of it's being lifted up by Cloverworks doing a good job with the animation.
Yeah,
You know, if there's one thing I can give Mitsugi credit for, is that he coined the term breaking wind for this anime.
Do you smell that?
did he
With
though? I
that,
thought I came up. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
You know what?
If
You
it
know
was
what? I
clever,
just
it
assumed
probably
that he
wasn't
did.
him.
Oh my gosh. Oh well, we
Uh,
can collectively say that we coined that
yeah,
then.
the podcast trademark. I really feel like talking about Windbreaker by itself is kind of so-so, but I feel like it pairs very well with the number 3
Oh,
bottom show, which is Buchigiri. And essentially, both of these shows are very similar in a lot of ways. They look visually pretty gorgeous, pretty fantastic. They have great animation, great personality in the animation, the set designs, like the character designs. They all really pop and kind of grab me and are kind of cool, but are just both bolstered by such a kind of boring script, boring writing, boring show that has a kind of potential with this vagabond exploring delinquent sort of fighting crews going around. Like they're very similar, just one has more of a supernatural slant, but both of them just kind of go astray somewhere along the way, and you just are left feeling kind of dejected and disappointed by like what you got at the end. And once again, as Caroline mentioned, they both had potential, they just didn't deliver anything.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Since I mentioned I have not seen this show, and I decided to look up images. Why does this guy have a chain going across the bridge of his nose? Is that a
Well,
necklace?
Caroline, that's what
Did
we
he
in the
just
industry called
go?
fashion.
What the frick is that?
This is
He looks like he already kind of looks like a weirdo. Like he has the lip like spikes for
Mhm.
lip rings, and then he has his tongue sticking out, and he's
So Caroline, this
There's a lot
Buchigiri
wrong with
is
it.
directed and essentially done by the same studio director crew who did Skate to Infinity. So everyone
Oh
in
yes,
there is a
that
very
tracks.
All you had to say.
bombastic, cartoonish, larger than life figure who is flamboyant and full of energy and just a lot to take in. And when you kind of have that kind of character type, you know what you're getting. And it's just a lot. The show's a lot.
Is is the chain like attached to his earrings, and that's how it's laying across his nose, or is it like just hoisted up? And when you get bored and you have a necklace on, you're like, let me just like play with it. Let me put it above my lip or my nose or whatever. Is that what he's doing?
I think it's attached to the earrings. I think.
I wonder if this will catch on someday. I
I
don't think
think
so
as well, but
though.
I would need to re-examine. I would need to go look up some fan art or something to assess the contraption design. But yeah, it's
I think the
not
difference
terrible.
maker between Buchigiri and Windbreaker, which makes Buchigiri higher on this list and a show that I actively disliked, is that while Windbreaker is a kind of mid show from a story perspective and character perspective, there's nothing aggressively offensive about any of the characters really. Buchigiri, the main character, is actively hateable. I detested the main character of Buchigiri
Yeah,
thoroughly.
I think more mix on Origin than you were. I get where he's coming from, not wanting to get involved, but he does get pretty infuriating from what I recall. So
Makes
yeah,
sense happening here.
yeah, it
Above
just also felt a little creepier and skeevier and a little more like assaulty and pervy in a way that doesn't play off my
yeah.
palate that well. So, mm, but I think they're a good group. I'm glad they're bunched together in our ranking, and now we can move on to number 2, which is I should be doing the number 2 drops, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's not.
I was saying
Mitz
the
can do
same
it in
thing.
post if he really wants. Who wants to take this? Who even watched more than a couple episodes of this?
Oh, I watched all of our number 2 choice,
Ooh,
Suicide
excellent.
Squad Isekai. This is exactly what it's labeled on the tin. It's Suicide Squad, but they're Isekai. Whoa! And it's not even, unfortunately, it's not the quality of the second Suicide Squad movie. This is like the first Suicide Squad movie, including the same amount of Joker time, which is kind of I didn't even realize put that together until just now that the Joker is like sprinkled slightly throughout the show, the same way as it was in the first movie, where you think he's gonna be something and but it was advertised as like a selling point, and then he's just not in it.
It's just
It's
enough
a
to tease you.
just enough. It's a bog standard of bog standard isekai stories, with the heroes reskinned to be the Suicide Squad characters. It's not animated particularly great, which is a shame because it was Wit Studio that did it. The writing's not great. The characters, some are okay. Like Harley Quinn's fun because Harley Quinn's always a fun character. Clayface is kind of fun because he is very like he's like the genre savvy character, so he's a little bit fun.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then oh god, what's his name? Peacekeeper is like he was in the new movie, but not as good. So it kind of like is that disappointment of that gap from where you've seen it be. Um, the only thing of real redeeming quality for this show is the OP and ED were pretty good. That's about it.
So this was back in summer. I watched an episode or two for impressions back then. I just remember being let down, and obviously, when I picked it, I knew there was the chance that it was going to be, just a shoe-in DC anime crossover, and it did really feel as shallow as that. I had my hopes, like maybe crossovers have been kind of hot these days with stuff like Castlevania or stuff like Cyberpunk. Like those both, I think, are pretty well beloved. So I gave it a chance. It was really just went over as a wet blanket. Even not being super intimate with the Suicide Squad characters and story and modern renditions of it, it didn't really sell me on it. So I think whether you're a fan or not a fan, you were going to be kind of disappointed by going into this one. So yeah, just all the flashy OP animation wasn't enough to realize how bad it looked in the day-to-day part of the show. So it was pretty crummy. And you had this, not the worst on your list, but a lot of other people didn't think it was very good. So that's why it made the number 2 spot.
I watched some bad shows, so it wasn't. I actually had Buchi Yuri above this more because, again, I just hated that main character so much.
That's fair.
But they belong on this list, both of them.
Yeah. Are we ready to get to, I think pretty handedly, is the AAA podcast stamp of approval for the worst show of 2024?
Oh, yeah.
You want to take this one, Riggedy? Because you had this front and center on your list.
Oh, yeah. This was number 1 on my list. It was number 1 on Otaku Cop's list, too. And I think it was high up on your list, right, Mason?
I mean, it was the highest on my list, but with my like very vague rating system. But yeah.
And absolutely nowhere on Lady Emery's list. Let's just remember.
You know what? Okay. So it's My Dear Friend Nokutan is our number 1 worst show. Beyond the normal issues with this show, what we talked about in the review, the animation not being good, the jokes not really landing, the way it's structured just making absolutely no sense when it should have been short instead of a full season. I still have my own personal vendetta against this show because after I was finished watching with it, my child kept asking for the stupid fucking show for like another month.
Kate, stop! Was she also going, Noko, Noko, Dan, Dan?
No.
Talk about another show where the OP was the best part of it.
Also another show
Yeah.
where the OP was... Yeah. No. She would point at the TV and say, "Deer, more deer, please." I was like, please, let it end. Let it stop.
How old is your girl again?
She's 2.5 now.
Oh, you should never have shown her that.
I think she
What
would
were
have
you
taste
thinking?
by that age, but I guess.
No, she watches One Piece. She has no taste.
That's fair. It's been driven out of her.
Yeah, I saw a couple episodes of Nokotan. I had it pretty high on my list for impressions when it came out, just because it seemed like it could be fun if it was done right. By the first couple episodes, I'm like, I am not, like, it has to hook me, and it didn't have a hook. It just had a lot of craziness, and it wasn't particularly well done. So I just never picked it up again. And I avoided that review. I did not want to be there for it.
You made the right choice.
Yeah. And so, like, this is the token brain rot.
My brain.
Shit meme show of the season. And I get that that's not for everyone. It's a comedy style that is not going to resonate with everyone. But even a show that did something similar in Pop Team Epic still flexed enough creativity and talent in the animation and voice acting and different elements of it that even when I wasn't vibing with the humor of it, I could at least appreciate what it was going for, or how it was challenging the mold, or something beyond just haha CG deer and the same tropes recycled with some of the worst characters I've ever seen. So yeah, I'm sure there's some people who really live and die by Nokotan, and I get that. I'm happy for you. But there's shows that do this kind of comedy vastly superior, and I would rather have just watched that instead. So, is it the worst show of 2024? Yes, we just proved it was. But if you think another show is worse, remember to vote in our AAA podcast Oscars, where we have the esteemed Pooper Scooper Award, and that, chosen by thousands of you guys, carries much more weight than our little list here. So, once again, go vote before you forget. I mean, we'll remind you every week, but just do it. Just get it off your plate.
I think we should at least give Nokotan props where it's really worth, because out of all the shows on this list, no other was able to create just as many memes as Nokotan did. None of these shows came close to the memes.
I mean, even outside the memes, Nokotan at least is memorable. Like 5 years from now, when you're gonna ask me like, "Hey, name something in Windbreaker," I'll be like, the guy had two-toned
The
hair,
heterochromia with two-tone
Heterochromia.
hair?
but he also had two-toned eye. Like, maybe that, but like, there's no point or element of it I'll remember. Like, Nokotan, as unfunny as it was, at least I will be like, haha, CG deer. I remember when that happened. And that girl who ate all the freaking rice. Like, at least it has some cultural currency, even if it is pretty much worthless. So that's the olive branch that I will extend.
I won't. Let's move on to good
Let's
shows.
go to some positivity. And now, Caroline, honorable mentions, aka all the shows that I put on my list that no one else put on their list because A, they didn't watch them, or B, I have the worst taste ever. Because pretty much every show I put on here, no one else had in a country mile of their top 5. But let's start, Caroline. Oshinoko Season 2.
Okay.
This was
Yeah.
good.
In case you guys are surprised, yes, Oshinoko season 2. You had no idea, right? So that's the only show on my list that did not make it into the top 5. I just want to I just think it was like a really good sequel. Like, it didn't rest on the laurels of what made the first season good. It expanded on things. Characters were developed. It's setting up for a pretty good sequel season 2. I've sung them the praises quite a bit in the past, especially in that review, so I don't want to go on for too long. But yeah, definitely a good show of this year.
I was trying to avoid all sequels on my list here. And so, for the record, the parameters we had for making these lists was shows that began and ended in 2024. So when you go to vote for the Oscars, Freyrin will be eligible because it didn't end until 2024, and we didn't vote on it last year. But we didn't put Freyrin on like our best list here because it didn't start in 2024. Don't worry about it, just clearing that up. But yeah,
Complicated.
a lot of sequel shows like the latest Monogatari, Sound Euphonium season 3, like those are long running stuff, and I didn't think they needed more time in the sun with our list here because if you already like them, you already know that. And I was trying to get the new stuff. That said, Oshinoko, while not making my list, I was very pleasantly surprised with season 2. I was coming in expecting it to be like a step down, more of the same, just not really worth the hype and all the stuff that it had been garnering. And I thought it was quite solid. I liked what it did most of the time, and I was like, yeah, season 3, let's do it. So I'm with you, Caroline. Good show.
And honestly, if I didn't put my kind of cheese pick on here, Oshinoko would have made my list too.
There we go.
Speaking of my cheese
yeah,
pick.
let's hear your cheesy picks.
So I have one cheesy pick and one legitimate pick. My cheesy pick, which was my number one show of 2024, it was a single episode OVA it was One Piece Fan Letter. It was great. It was directed by Megumi Ishitani. Yes, that's her name. So people who know, they know. She only does like a few random episodes of One Piece, and they're everyone's favorite episodes. She got her own little side spin-off thing. It looks amazing. It is the top-rated anime for 2024 on both MAL and AniList. Some of that is probably, One Piece fans being One Piece fans, but it's higher rated than all the other One Piece stuff. So people really did jive with it. My less cheesy real thing, I put Bleach 1,000 Year Blood War. I know, you have to be someone who's stuck with all of Bleach to get 2,000 Year Blood War, but it is really freaking good.
Why didn't Emery
And
put that on her list?
but probably because we're talking about it for Shonen Showdown this month. Tune in for that.
Man. But if she really
Mason,
liked
why
it.
did you leave your... Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. I didn't have anything
I was
else.
wondering why you left your number 3 spot blank.
So, my number 1 show of the year is what we're going to be reviewing in a bit. Not this episode, but in a couple episodes, which I have not finished yet, to be fair. But it is Dead Dead Demon Day Destruction, because that show is awesome and unique and a ton of fun and wild and makes you think, and I'm very excited to do the review of it. My second favorite show of the year so far is the one that everyone fell asleep to, which is Shoshimin, How to Become Ordinary, with the hot chocolate mysteries that everyone just conked out to. And my number 3 favorite show of the year, I also haven't finished because it's not over with, but that's Orb, Movements of the Earth, which is fantastic. Love the writing in it. Yes, the animation is not gonna wow you, but it's just so freaking awesome. But it did end in 2024, but I didn't want to give another show that spot. So my number 4 show, I skipped ranking a number 3 because
Your guess is as good as mine.
spite, who knows. So that's why I there's blanks in my thing. So any other honorable mentions, aka personal picks that were like crying out to be like, no, I have good taste, audience?
No, I've revealed my shitty taste.
Okay, perfect. Well, then let's begin with the number 5 show according to the podcast hosts of 2024. Caroline, what is it?
It's Yatagarasu! Woo! It made it!
It made it for sure. And I think it would have been higher had
Yeah.
more people watched it, I would argue. Because I feel like, Raggedy, have you
Yeah.
watched Yatagarasu?
I watched all of it. It's great.
Yeah.
It is quite good. I think the reason it didn't make my list is because like the ending of the season is weirdly vague, where they're obviously like able to do more, but I don't know if they're gonna get more. It's like one of those things where it's like it didn't have enough of a conclusion to me, or didn't have a immediate like, oh, we're coming out with more, for me to say like, oh yeah, I'm all in on this. That's the only thing holding it back for me.
Yatagarasu was strange with its ending because it had a perfect ending point and then kept on going a bit. So you like felt satisfied, and then it like did a drastic lane shift and told another, I'd still say compelling story, but it was just very different in mood and atmosphere and pacing. And it kind of threw you for a loop, and then it ended and you're like, well, I got more than I expected, so that was good, but also it wasn't like a nice clean, the day is saved right off into the sunset. So that could have fuzzled with some people, but overall it came out of nowhere, no expectations, and really blew me away with doing a lot of things really well.
Yeah, I just feel like it kept on adding like interesting points to it. Like, not only is it a fantasy show with people that can turn into birds, or sorry, birds that can turn into people and usually stay as people, but then they have a whole social class system where some of the birds stay in their form as slaves to these other birds that want to stay in their human form, as sort of a class hierarchy thing. And then there are so many plot twists on top of that kind of reveal that the world is so much bigger and more complicated than you really think it is. And like, this is all like, it's not just a bird show, guys. There's a lot to it. So I think
if you
I'm
haven't
hoping
checked it
for a
out
sequel season.
and you're a big fan of like political interplay and like twists and undercutting and court drama and action and mystery, like it just has a lot of everything, and it actually fits together on the plate pretty well. Don't miss out. Watch Yatagarasu if that sounds like it's up your alley, and consider it for the Oscars if you're gonna vote.
But the full name of it is, in case you're confused, it's Yatagarasu, the raven does not choose its master. So if if you type in Yatagarasu and you're not sure which one it is, it's that one.
There you go. Moving on with a show
Great.
that probably no one has ever heard of, but it's Solo Leveling. So this is
Solo
not
what? Solo
Solo
who?
Leveling. I don't know how to pronounce it, but Solo Leveling from all the way back of winter, so a year ago, and I know people are going to be confused and think they're voting for Solo Leveling Season 2, which is currently airing. No, this is the OG Solo Leveling. It actually is qualified because it came out in 2024, which seems like a bajillion years. I wasn't the biggest fan, but you guys can tell the listeners why it was so good.
It's just good popcorn. It's show. Like, it's buttery, it's salty, it's how popcorn needs to be, but it's not at all adding any nutritional value to your watching.
Yeah.
So it's a fine show. It's such an easy watch. Surprisingly, it was not Mitsugi who put the show over the top on this list, though. It was Kaiten. He
Well,
put
Of course I did.
it as his number one
that
pick.
doesn't surprise me.
Yeah,
He loves,
no.
he loves it.
Mitsugi had it as
Kaiten's
his number 3.
But yeah, this is a Michael Bay movie turned anime, right? This is Bad Boys 2. You turn your brain off, you watch the pretty colors, and they are some real pretty colors.
The production is good. Like, let's not pretend it's not.
I mean, let's not pretend it is, but we can get into that another day.
Okay, Nathan,
Solo Leveling is
stop
not
being
my
an
thing,
elitist.
but it's well beloved. It's very popular. It scratches the itch that people come to those kind of shows for, and people are enjoying season 2. So like it's living up to.
It does its job.
It does its job. Yeah, it's the type of show it needs to be that it's trying to be, and I'm glad for Solo Leveling fans, and they're getting more of it. So keep it coming. Next up, number 3 on the top shows, which kind of surprised me, but it didn't make anyone's number 1 show, but it popped up a lot across the board. What is it, Caroline? Because it's on your list.
It is Kaiju number 8, which, I mean, I feel like it didn't reach the heights that we kind of expected it and wanted it to, but it's just a solid show. It's fun. It has some pretty decent, fun characters, even though the main character is my least favorite. But yeah, I mean, it's just a fairly decent show, and I'm would be hyped for a season 2.
I think season 1 is very much a stage setting, getting you used to the characters in the world, and like like it could definitely become a much crazier show leading into a second season. I think that's probably why it's more middling on our list, on our top list, is that it's good, and again, it does its job well. It does the shonen punch 'em up stuff with a little bit of an extra zest or flavor. It definitely gets more into like the gory, horror-y kind of stuff, which is always fun. But yeah, I think season 2 is what could put it more over the top.
Mm-hmm. But that being said, if the season 2 is probably just more of the same, doesn't really go much further, the opinion of it will probably drop for me.
Yeah, it's tough. It's season 1 of a shonen. I mean, stuff like My Hero Academia, even itself, which breaks things up into seasons, has those 2 core things to really get the ball rolling. And at the end of the day, like Caroline said, Kaiju number 8 was kind of disappointing because I thought the manga came out so strong, and I liked the premise of the older main character, blah, 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 and it just didn't really hit that itch for me. But it still was a very competently done shonen. It was fun to watch. The world seems really interesting. I want to know more about how it works and how they're going to function within it. So it's a good time. I don't mind that spot. Number 2.
Great.
And a show, once again, going all the way back to winter. And this was a 2-core show that felt like forever ago. Delicious in Dungeon. Dungeon Meshi. Trigger is back.
Yeah, I just feel like with this
dungeon.
show, it was just such a surprising hit for me, because I knew that it was critically acclaimed going into it, but knowing that it was more slice of life than otherwise, I was thinking, okay, it'll be a nice show, but not an interesting one. But it was surprisingly very interesting and entertaining.
Delicious in Dungeon is what happens when you have someone, excuse me, when you have a creator actually put time and thought into not just the character or the basic story, but the entire functioning of the world around the story and characters. That's what makes it stick, I think, more in people's minds is how well crafted the dungeon is, how the ecosystem works, how the like
The characters playing off each other. That was
yeah,
big.
it's more than a lot more thought is put into this. A lot of care is put into every aspect of the show. And Trigger also did a really good job adapting it and animating it.
Yeah, it looks gorgeous. It sounds gorgeous. Just the atmosphere is awesome. And I talked about moments ago. Oh, Kaiju number 8 has an interesting world. I like seeing how stuff functions within it. But when you compare it to something like Delicious in Dungeon, it's such another level of the intricacies and the whole consideration of the package that Raggedy was talking about that makes it feel so immersive and entrancing for every new room they encounter. It all kind of winds together. It's this whole ecosystem more than just a backdrop. And that really sold me. And I kind of didn't vibe with the show at the beginning. I thought some of the characters, not going to name names, but you know who it is if you remember our talks on it, kind of annoyed me, kind of were aggravating. But like the world, like the characters, I just eventually warmed up to them all and really had a good time with the show. It's very meticulously produced and thought of and just really earned the praise that it deserves. So I'm definitely glad with this one being at the top of the list almost.
All right, and with that, I feel like number 1 is not a surprise to literally anybody.
Yeah.
Because it's so good.
Another show. The best part about it is the OP, but also the rest of the show. What is it, Caroline?
It's Don Da Don.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Obviously.
All right, we're done here. No, okay. Well, we haven't been able to review this yet, so I don't know how much we can go into without spoiling what
Just
we'll
general
eventually say.
positive sentiments, if you want to give anything. I mean, I don't think anyone right now is like, Don Da Don, you say. I haven't.
What is
that like Yatagarsu? I haven't heard of that. I should check it out before voting in the Oscars. Plug.
I think the number 1 thing that really hit with Don Da Don for me is the characters. Like the characters are just so fun and it feels refreshing. I don't like their interactions with each other is like even if it wasn't involving a plot with aliens and spirits and supernatural powers and talking cat dolls, etc., I would just want to watch these 2 main characters interact, no matter what the plot was.
I feel like they're annoying in a way that high schoolers are annoying, and not in a way that some anime writer was like, oh, let's have this person be kind of grating. It was like, no, a 15-year-old pipsqueak kid probably would whine about this, or like make faces at this girl, or run around the room naked and just be goofy. Like, they feel in this world, like you said, of supernatural oddities and craziness. There's a sense of realism and groundedness in how the characters are portrayed, how they act, how they bounce off each other, that makes the action scenes and the nonsense scenes both just kind of riveting in a way, with phenomenal animation, great soundtrack, just all this really great, once again, similar to Delicious in Dungeon, just great world building and production that just makes you feel like, yeah, this is fun. As Raggedy said, bit of a ending, but more is to come, and I don't think it diminished it enough in a lot of people's eyes to take it away from being the top spot.
Yeah.
No, this is what peak shonen looks like. This is Science Saru knocked it out of the park. I cannot remember. Well, I can remember, I guess, but it's been a very long time since I have watched a battle shonen that has made me super hyped over the action and then also cried like a little baby.
When he with the testicles, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh yeah, okay. Just making sure it's the
I
same
felt
thing.
that. Yeah, exactly.
Were you crying over the
That
science mannequin finding his love in the dungeon?
No, I was cheering. Okay, for that one. And oh my god, that sequence was also great.
Yeah.
Dandadan's so good. Just watch it. Watch Dandadan. Vote for it for the Oscars.
You don't even have to watch the show. Just like watch the opening and you're hooked.
Anyway,
so good.
Thank you for sitting with us. Hopefully you check out some of those shows if you haven't yet, because they are probably pretty good. And make sure to vote. AAAPodcast.com. I'm going to remind you every week, unless I'm not here and someone else will. But don't let it get away from you, because it'll close in like a month. And you'll be like, oh, I should have voted. But no, don't put that on yourself. Just do it. You'll feel better. And it'll be good. We'll have a fun time. It's a good show.